And I'm really excited to introduce Angela Kaiser. She is a UBC graduate of the Sauder School of Business and holds a CPA, CGA, and CFP designations. She also completed the Institute of Corporate Directors program in 2010 and works in public practice, providing corporate and personal tax services and business consulting to small business clients and individuals. So we're so lucky to have someone with her expertise here with us today. And over the past 20 years, she's been on multiple corporate boards, as well as she's volunteered a lot in the community on a number of nonprofit boards. And we're really grateful that she's also volunteering with us here today. I also would like to note in her bio, she runs a piano studio, which I think is very cool because I grew up playing piano as well. And when she's not working or volunteering, you can find her cycling, hiking, playing pickleball, kayaking, snowshoeing, or simply spending time with her family. So thank you so much, Angela, and I'll pass the mic off to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very excited to be here with all you wonderful folks this afternoon. And I got something new to add to my bio. I just became a grandma 2 months ago, and I actually just made a quick pit stop to see my little 2-month-old grandson. I got the chance to cuddle him. So that's something else I get to add to what I do on my free time, is cuddle a little grandchild. Anyways, thanks for the introduction. Great to be here, especially on behalf of Chartered Professional Accountants. For those of you who don't know, CPAs, we've got about 220,000 CPAs across the country, and in BC alone, about 40,000 of us. And I think most of you will know what CPAs do, I'm sure, but I think what's really important to me, as well as to many of my peers, is the importance of financial literacy and volunteering in sessions such as this to educate our public on areas around financial management. And in this case, we're going to be talking about fraud in particular. And it is fraud protection for seniors, but honest to goodness, whatever I'm saying today is going to apply to anybody, no matter what your age is. Here's a little bit of a look at our agenda. We've got an hour together today. If you want to ask questions, I'm sure there's a chat where you can put questions in. I'm happy to take questions as we go along. I will have hopefully enough time at the end to answer questions as well. But what we're going to look at fraud from a high level. I'm going to talk a little bit about what exactly fraud is, how does it work? And then we'll dig into some of the vulnerabilities, especially for seniors, where they may be more vulnerable to be a victim of fraud. And we'll give you some ideas about what those signs are that you need to be looking for to actually recognize that you have in fact been victimized. And then what are you going to do if that does happen to you? Because one of the things for certain is it's not if, it's when. It's probably already happened to a handful of you, or more than a handful of you on the Zoom call. I know it's happened to me, and it is going to happen. It's just the world that we're living in. And we'll also discuss a little bit about the different types of frauds that are out there. So like I said, let's let it be interactive. If I say something that you're not entirely clear about, put it in the chat or raise your hand. I can't see everybody on the screen, but maybe Tess or one of the other facilitators here will be able to see that. But as we go through this, because it is intended for you to help you to understand how you can protect yourselves as best as possible. So when we talk about fraud is very methodical, and it's also layered. And I think what you want to do is think about fraud as being this large production play in which there are multiple different players and actors, and they've all got different parts to do. And awareness, it's just not good enough these days. I mean, the fact that you're on this call is shows that you are aware that fraud exists and it's out there. But what you're recognizing is it's not good enough to know. It's actually important to educate yourselves more about what you need to be looking for and what you need to do. And that's what you're doing on this educational session today. And we hear the word vigilant all the time. You need to be vigilant. But I think it's important too to recognize that let's not confuse vigilance with being paranoid, because some of the stuff we're going to talk about, it's scary, with all the world and all the different things that are happening about. I can see us becoming paranoid and uncertain and always second guessing ourselves, but we don't want that to happen to you. What we want to do is to make sure you get that right level of knowledge on an ongoing basis so that when you're in a situation under pressure and you need to make some kind of a decision, you're able to make an intelligent and an informed decision. So that's what we mean by being vigilant, continually educating yourself so that you can respond quickly and appropriately under pressure. And then I'm also going to say that when we talked about this fraud being like this big production play, the sad part is the victims, they don't have a part in this play. They're not on the stage. They're nowhere to be seen. And examples of when this happens is things such as the ATM skimmers. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. But when you scan your card and all that information is taken from you, and there's this big stuff happening in the background, multiple actors doing different things, and you're totally not aware of it. Another example would be with the computer-based key loggers. There's a situation when you're actually part of that production, but you're not really an actor on that stage. So it is, when we talk about fraud, it is the use when somebody uses somebody else's identity. And what they're doing is actually pretending to be somebody else. And that's what qualifies the crime as fraud. The theft is when they just actually take that information. That itself is not fraud. So they can be taking your information, but that's not the fraud. The fraud is when they're using that information that they've taken and then creating this identity out of that information. And that false identity that they're using, it can be obviously of another individual that's alive, but it can also be of somebody that's deceased. And it can also be where they take this information and just create a fictional individual that appears to be totally legitimate, but they're using little parts of your personal identity to create this fictional individual. Credit cards, these are one of the most common short-time term types of frauds out there. And 73% of the fraud that happens is with credit cards. And one of the most effective long-term frauds that we see is what they call ghosting. You may have heard that term before. So ghosting is when they're using like your social insurance number, and what they'll do is they'll slip into a deceased individual's identity, and then they start to collect some of those social benefits. So identity fraud, this can happen without actual identity theft. So this is the case where the fraudster, maybe they've been given somebody's identity information for other reasons, which are legitimate reasons. So there's no fraud committed with them receiving that personal information. But again, I'm just going to state again, when that person whose identity is being used, when they take that information that they've legitimately been given, but then use it to impersonate you, which is usually for financial gain. So there's a difference between the theft and the fraud, and it is the fraud that is the one that is the most problematic. So the other thing that's interesting about information theft is that you actually still possess it. Even though they've taken your personal information, you still personally own that. And what you don't realize is that you have lost control of that information. So it is that concept of control over information, which is that what people really need to understand. It's that loss of control. That's what you need to be concerned about, and that's what you need to be watching out for. Because once your information has been compromised, its rightful owner, you still have custody, but you don't have that control. And what makes it really devastating is the fact that you may not know that this crime has occurred. So, some of the ways where you start to realize that this crime has occurred, it can be where money may have been withdrawn from your bank account or may be transferred from one account to another account. Perhaps new accounts have been opened up in your name and you don't even know about it, or loans have been set up under your name or under your identity, your personal information, or they start to make purchases for whether it's retail goods or perhaps even services. And the bad guys, the criminals, they hide their tracks really, really well. And in some cases, they're going to use the same method that they're using to carry out this fraud, and they're going to do it over and over and over again. And in other cases, what they do is they're going to somewhat hide their activities, and they're going to victimize the same target over an extended period of time. And then we've got situations where fraud occurs, and it's all about speed, fast, 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 fast. They don't even care if they can see it, or if you see it, or if the police or the people that are chasing these criminals can see it. They are acting so quickly that they are making their financial gains within just a very, very short time, and then they stop, and then you can no longer find them. So this is some of the things that you want to kind of be aware of. And the thing to recognize when damage happens, particularly to your credit card or to your credit records, it does have negative impacts. If you've been a victim, you know what you have to go through to kind of put things back in place. And some of these are really almost irreversible to correct. So how do fraud scams work? Well, the thing is that even though there are really, really stiff penalties out there when there's been a successful prosecution, when identity fraud works, it unfortunately works really, really well. And we tell people to be vigilant, right? You got it. You want to keep yourself educated. You want to be on top of things, and you want to be aware. But it's that one tiny split-second moment of inattention. Even though you know all these things, it's a split second of inattention when suddenly fraud has been committed, your identity is being stolen, you're suddenly a victim of fraud. And I can share a short little story with you, what happened to me. This happened a couple of years ago, probably about 5 years ago now. I signed up for a new cell phone plan, and that was great, got it all set up. And then the next day I get an email from that cell provider, and it's telling me that, you're eligible, or you know what, if you log into this, you're going to get this new phone, right? And all you need is your credit card information. And because I had just signed up for that cell phone provider, there was legitimacy to this email that I received telling me that I was going to get this upgraded telephone, right? And all what I had to do was provide them my credit card information. Well, I'm not a stupid person, but I was stupid in that particular moment. Not even stupid. I was vulnerable. I was tired. I associated immediately. I was in the midst of doing a whole bunch of different things. I put my credit card information. I never got that new phone. And what I started getting, because the card information, I started seeing charges on my credit card. Luckily, it was nothing more serious than that, and I was able to correct it. But my point to you is that even though you're vigilant, even if you're careful, even though you know, it's so easy in that one moment of not fully paying attention and questioning yourself, why am I doing this? Is this even real? You can get caught. So again, to be really, really careful, it can happen incredibly easily. The other thing I'll say too is that if you're in a situation where somebody's pressuring you, and they're starting to be a little bit more aggressive, and they're pushing you that you need to do this, and it's time sensitive and all that, let that be a really, really big red flag for you, because yeah, you know what? You should never be put under pressure to do anything quickly, or when you're not ready to do that. You don't want to do these knee-jerk reactions. Remember, being vigilant means stepping back, making intelligent decisions, thoughtful decisions, and never being pressurized in doing something quickly or that you're not certain about. Did we have any questions up to this point? Nope. Okay, we're looking good. All right. So on the screen, what you see here is 3 top scams that are out there. And these particular scams have been out there a long time. So we've got the fraudulent services, and that fraudulent services, that can be anything such as telecommunications, utilities, related to medical or to finance, warranties, insurance, sales services, anything like that. But basically, it's where they're fraudulently selling you some kind of a service. Well, the prize pitch, I haven't heard this one too much lately, but certainly it was very much out there a few years back. You'd pick up the phone and you'd hear the sound of the cruise ship horn blasting in the background, and then the voice comes, "Congratulations, you're the winner of this free cruise, and all what you need to do is send us this particular fee, small fee, and then we're going to send you your cruise tickets." Well, any kind of prize pitch like that, if there is something attached to it where there's some kind of fee that you have to pay, it's more than likely going to be a scam. The other thing I'll say, if it's too good to be true, it's also more than likely a scam. They're still out there, because these things work. People are vulnerable. They may catch them at a weak moment. But again, stop and think and say, is this legitimate? And then question whether or not there's some other way of getting it. And you'll never should have to pay a fee to get a prize. You might have to answer a skill testing question, but you should never have to pay a fee. So keep that in the back of your mind. The grandparent scam. I can't see everybody, but maybe you guys can see more faces on the screen, but I would be really curious how many of you have ever had the call and been a victim of the grandparent scam, because I'm going to put my hand up on this one as well, because I got one of these calls and it's very, very traumatizing. I've seen a few other hands come up as well. So for those that don't know what the grandparent scam is, basically you're getting a call, and that call is going to be supposedly from a family member or from a really good friend, and they're going to be prompting the victim to urgently send them money. There's always a sense of urgency. Something has happened, and please send me money really, really quickly, either by e-transfer or through some money transfer company. And these calls are going to come to you in the middle of the night. They're going to come to you when you're disoriented, when you're tired, when you're not really, fully awake, or and so forth. So again, I'll share a story just to say how easy it is to get caught on this. I got this call. It was about 2 years ago. So it was relatively recent. And I am a grandparent now, but I wasn't a grandparent then, right? But I get this call, and it says, hey, actually it said, hi, the individual said, "Hi, Granny, it's your grandson." And okay, that should have been a red flag for me, but there was something similar in the voice, something that I recognized in the voice that sounded like my nephew. And he kept talking, and he kept telling me stuff that, he's being pulled over by the policeman, and he did a really stupid thing. He told him he was drinking a glass of wine. Red flag number 2, he doesn't drink wine. I know he doesn't drink wine. I've never seen it. In fact, he doesn't even drink. And he said this, and then he said he's being taken to the police station and he needs me to send him money. So he's telling me all this, and we're about, probably 45, 60 seconds into the call. And only at that point did I start to realize, hey, something's not lining up, because actually I started asking questions. And every time I ask a question, the individual at the other end, pretending to be my nephew, was responding to the question in a way that created more legitimacy to it. And we were probably on the phone for about 2 or 3 minutes, but it sounded so real. And thankfully, I did catch on to this one. I didn't fall prey to this, because there were too many things that he had said incorrectly and that he was correcting along the way. But that real sense of urgency is there. So if you're getting that call, stop, or simply say, "Yes, I'm going to send you the money. Give me the information. Collect as much information as you can on this." And then say, "But my funds are locked. I'm going to have to get back to you. I will call you back." And I'm sure you've got your family members' phone numbers. So hang up, call them back, probably call the police as well. Collect as much information as you can. Again, sit back and ask yourself the question, is this real? And I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning. I want you to be vigilant. I don't want you to be paranoid, because stuff does happen, and you may legitimately get a call from one of your family members and they are in need, and you may need to step in a system. But you have to step back and ask yourself that question and then go and hang up and try reaching them a different way. It's a real scam, and it's impacted so many people. And it's so, so sad when this happens because, again, they're preying on the goodness of individuals. So what are the scammers looking for when they're coming after you? Well, here's a list of items that they're going to want. They, a lot of them are probably quite obvious to you. The things that we're always trying to protect, our names are out there. They're probably the least thing that's protected about us. But your name alone is usually hard for them to create this new identity or to commit fraud. But once they start having one or two other pieces of this information, then the scammers have hit the jackpot, and then they're starting to be able to create these identities. So I want you to be really careful about where you're keeping all of these different all of this information, including your bank accounts, your credit card numbers, your PIN numbers. Please, please, please do not write down your PIN numbers on a piece of paper and tape them to your credit cards or to your debit cards. I've seen people do this, and I know how hard it is to remember your PIN numbers. We tend to forget this, especially when they make us change them. But do not tape them to the actual card itself, because again, that's a double jackpot if they happen to access your credit card or your debit card and your PIN number is attached to that. So again, these are the things that they're going to be looking for. So when they get this information and they do get your PINs, or they do get your credit card numbers or your bank card numbers, they've got your identity, your name, maybe they've got your date of birth. They're now in a position where they're able to start to access things such as your bank accounts. They may be able to actually open a bank account under your name, but where you have absolutely no aware that this is even being happening. They may be applying for loans under your using your information, opening brand new credit cards, which get mailed to addresses which are completely separate from the address where you're living. So again, you have no idea this is happening. They may be making purchases of goods or services. And as I mentioned in the opening, they may actually be applying for social benefits. We saw a lot of this happening during COVID, when there were benefits that were being paid out and they were being done under stolen identities, basically, and being sent and mailed to different addresses. So again, this is the kind of stuff that they're wanting to do. And this is where a lot of crime is happening right as we're speaking, or right as we're here together on this Zoom call. So how does this happen? And what are the vulnerabilities that you need to be aware of? So here's the thing. As seniors or as retired individuals, many of us, we're home. We're home for most of the day. We're at home, and we tend to have very predictable schedules. We'll go on our morning walks. We'll do something in the afternoon. We'll be in the gardens during the summer weather. We'll be putting around in there. And if people are watching and checking out your neighborhood, they're seeing they're starting to recognize what part of your patterns are. And then they also know when to approach you. So when you're out there in the garden, they'll come up to you. They can see that you're alone. You don't have a lot of people visiting you. And then they'll say, hey, I'm with such and such a company, and I noticed that your roof, that it looks like it's starting to need some repairs on that. You may be, I don't know about some of you out there, but I don't have a clue if my roof is starting to need maintenance, or is going to be close to starting to leak or anything like that. That's not my area of expertise. So when they tell me that, I might be in that position where I'm going to say, oh, that's great. And then they're going to tell you they've got a sale on there in the neighborhood. And you know what? If you put down payment on it now, they'll be back the next day or in the week, and they'll make sure that you don't have a leaky roof. Well, again, those kind of things, you got to step back and say, well, you know what? Maybe I should get some other quotes. Maybe even though this is a deal, is it too good to be true? I wasn't really looking for this type of stuff. You just got to be really, really careful that you weren't looking for this. So why are they suddenly offering this type of stuff to you? And the worst is that roof, they may actually come and fix that roof. Maybe that roof wasn't even near requiring repairs. And then you pay this money, you may get new shingles on your roof, but maybe you didn't even need it. The other thing that happens sadly is around charities, particularly this time of year. And I'm going to say that, when people come and they're asking for donations at your door, be really, really careful. Do not give money at the door. There is dangers that the scammers are generally out there doing it. Most credible charitable organizations no longer do the door to door. They're putting their volunteers at risk, but they're definitely, because there's so many scammers out there, they want to make sure that you're aware of that and you're not falling prey to that. So if they do come to the door, tell them to leave a flyer in the mailbox, and that you're going to go then pick up that flyer, and that you're going to, if you're interested and want to support that organization, you're going to reach out to them directly on your own. So you might want to also put that no solicitation sign on your door. That will keep some of the people away as well. You may want to put something, a device. We can have devices now in your home just to keep you safe, where you can actually speak to somebody that's standing at your front door from inside of your house, and you don't even have to open a window or a door. That's just some added security for you. And if there is somebody that's, even whether they're calling you or whether they're knocking at your door, you know what? Don't think you're being rude. You didn't invite them there. If they called you up, you didn't ask them to call you. And if they're being pushy and aggressive, hang up on them or shut the door on them, because nobody that's going to be a credible individual is going to get pushy or is going to get aggressive. Again, those are the red flags that you need to be watching out for, and you need to be walking away from really, really quickly. And part of this is because, many people, they may have lost their loved one, and they may be they may be alone, they may be living in more isolated areas, and we, that loneliness, it starts to lead us to be a little bit more trusting of individuals. But I'm going to say that fraudsters, the bad guys, are not the only ones that you need to be watching out for. Because sometimes it is those people that are really close to us, the caregivers, maybe the people that are dropping off your Meals on Wheels, or that are coming out to clean your homes or to actually physically assist you. These are wonderful people, and I'm not saying that they're bad people, so please don't misinterpret that. But I'm saying it's not always the obvious criminal people. Sometimes it's the people that are very close to us, our caregivers, even our family members, our friends, and any of those neighbors. Again, don't be paranoid, but be vigilant and be careful and be aware. Statistics have shown that more than 25% of crimes against the elders or older adults, they're actually committed by close family members. And that's horrible. It's actually horrible that a society has come to that. But again, it's that awareness that you need to have just to be careful. I don't know if any of you are on dating websites, and you've probably heard about the romance scams, and this is again another, I think it's a horrible scam that's out there. But if you are on dating websites, good for you. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to get out and know different kinds of people. But I'm going to say that the online love, it is one of the highest grossing scams out there. And even with the legitimate dating sites that are out there, it's being reported, and these stats are back actually from 2012, so I can't even imagine what they are today. There was over $16 million in losses. This is back in 2012. So not only do the individuals that were lonely and wanting to meet other individuals, right, whether it's just a friendship relationship or a more in-depth personal relationship, so not only are they out of their money, but they're also now heartbroken, and what happens then is they're embarrassed, and then they're feeling ashamed because what's happened. They may have been really significantly from a financial position, lost a lot. And then what happens? They don't want to report these crimes. And I'm really, really going to encourage you, do not be ashamed. I shared with you a couple of stories of what happened to me, and I did contact the police when these things happened. Not with the one that was the credit card one, but I contacted the credit card company. But with the grandparent scam, I got on the phone and I told the police about it. If you've been a victim with any kind of scam, it is so important to sit there and to share that information with other people. On these online sites, the fraudsters, they're gonna make their profile be much better than it really is. They're going to exaggerate everything about themselves. They're going to create, they're going to start very slowly, right? And they're going to start to build that relationship. They're not going to rush you in a lot of these romance scams. They're going to start slowly. They're going to build up that trust. And sometimes weeks, months, and maybe half a year has gone by, and then they'll start to ask you for money. And then as that online relationship is starting to develop and you think this is really fabulous, and you're probably not even sharing it with your other family members, but you're spending a lot of your time in this online situation, then what they'll do is, one of the big scams is they'll say, I want to come and visit you. Send me the money. I'm going to get an airline ticket. And you, because now you're ready to make this more than just an online relationship, what you do is you send them that money, you figure out how to send e-transfers, and next thing, you try to log on and see them, and they're nowhere to be found. Their profile is being disabled. So again, you don't want this to happen to you. I know you want to have relationships, but doesn't mean don't do it. It just means be careful and look at lots of other opportunities for relationships that may be out there, and make sure if something's happened to you to share it with other people. Now, the other vulnerability is as we're aging, it's normal. We start to have more chronic health issues. And as a result, we start to depend on other people for help. We need to have those caregivers come into the home. The other thing that happens is the sales people will also be trying to sell you more stuff. Maybe they're seeing you, noticing that you're going to the local drug mart, Shoppers Drug Mart, London Drugs, whatever it happens to be. And they're seeing that you're going to get your prescriptions or whatever it is. Maybe you're walking with a cane, and maybe they're observing this and they're starting to recognize some patterns. And then maybe they start to try to sell you home improvement things. And yes, some home improvement things are really good and really important. But again, they're taking advantage of your vulnerable situation. And in some cases, they're trying to scam you and buy things that you don't need. And they're trying to get your information. And maybe it's something that you've already got, and that maybe you've forgotten that you have it. There's hearing, there's sight loss, memory loss, all those things. It's not unusual for the bad guys to sit there and sell us the same stuff over and over again. So again, in any of these situations, I'm just going to remind you, step back. Don't make a decision on that spot, even if it sounds like it's something that you might need. Step back and think, do I really need this now? Do I need to make this decision right now? If they're putting pressure on me and saying, you got to make this decision right now, this is a one-time offer. Nah, there's no such thing. That offer's still going to be there. And if it's something that you need, you're going to be able to go again to that direct source and get it. Never let anybody pressure you. Never let anybody force you into purchasing something that you may legitimately need. But again, just step back and don't let them take advantage of you. Now, the other thing that makes us vulnerable as we're aging, oftentimes our senior population in general, we're more prosperous, right? But the thing is too, that if as a senior you're being taken advantage of, it's going to be really difficult to recover that financial loss. So again, it's really important to proactively protect yourself so that you're aware of what's happening. So fraud for seniors, it is on the rise. And what they do, oftentimes what we find in families is that you may find one of your family members saying, hey, mom, or hey, grandma, grandpa, dad, they passed away. You've got your personal residence now in your own name. And you know what, maybe we should put this property into joint tenancy. And there's lots of real good, legitimate reasons for it, but there are also lots of complications that arise from that. So when you've got a situation, when you've got a family member now telling you to put your property into joint tenancy, again, maybe have a conversation with the Fuller family about what the implications of this might be. Please have a conversation independently with your tax professional, with your accountant, with your lawyer. Don't just listen to the family members. You're still functioning individuals, but you can create problems down the road. You can maybe create a benefit on one hand, or something that's going to solve one problem, but it can create a bigger problem down the road. So don't let even family members just talk you into that without having had a broader, fuller conversation. If these are other individuals and they're asking you for money and they're playing on that, one of the things that you can do is, and maybe you legitimately want to and help them, but again, you're going to step back and say, hey, maybe it's a family member, you want to say, yeah, I want to help you, but right now my funds are tied up, so I can't give you this money immediately. I can't just hand it over to you. I can't just send you an e-transfer. It's locked in. Let me go and have some conversations, and then I'm going to get back to you, and just let me know whatever develops, particular family members. But really important, if you are giving loans to family members particularly, or to friends, can you write it down? Please write it down, especially if it's cash, because there's no audit trail. Honestly, when I've got 4 daughters, right? And when I give them gifts, and as particularly their birthdays or whatever it happens to be, because they're not all at the same time, I got to write it down because we want to be fair. We want to be fair to our family members. So I've got a birthday that's early in the year, and I've given them some cash for their birthday. I write down what I gave them so that by the time the next birthday comes around, I'm not going, oh my gosh, what did I give them? Right? And again, write it down, document it, document any time that you're giving loans to family members, so that if an issue arises, you're able to then have that information available about what exactly happened. And the other area is, as we're getting older, we didn't grow up in this digital world, and we're not as tech savvy, but we're pretty darn good because we're all sitting there on this Zoom call together, which I think is absolutely fabulous. So we're not as tech unsavvy as maybe they think we are, but still, that the world of technology, it is changing, and at times it can become really, really almost overwhelming. So what I say to that is, try to stay on top of that. You're taking an educational session today, take technology sessions. You're taking fraud session today. Look at taking a course on cybersecurity. Keep yourself educated, so that you can understand these type of things. And honestly, having things such as firewalls, a good anti-virus software, and a grandchild, they're the ones that are going to be probably able to help you the most if you're having tech questions, so that you're not being vulnerable to them, the bad guys, when they're trying to take advantage of you. So let's talk a little bit about the signs of when you are victimized. So what you're going to see is suddenly you're going to find out, maybe you're going into the bank, maybe you've got a line of credit or something like that, or you're talking to your bank manager, and they're suddenly mentioning a loan that you didn't know anything about. And you wouldn't until somebody usually brings it to your attention. Or maybe you did go to the bank because you want to help out one of your family members, and you're applying for a small loan or something like that. And suddenly, you're not going to get it because they're saying, oh, your credit score is it's not in a very good state. You would only find this out after trying to go through one of these applications. Maybe you're actually in the mail getting a notice of a denied application. It's saying that, thank you for applying for, maybe it was a credit card or a loan, whatever it was. And it comes back and says, unfortunately, we're not able to approve your application. What's really important here is that, number one, you open that correspondence, even if it looks like junk mail, and then you want to know, okay, well, I never even applied for this. Then at least you're aware something's happened. Somebody's used my personal information to do something. Thankfully, they were denied. But then you're going to have to sit there and follow up and go to that organization, go and check your credit reports and do a whole bunch of different things. The same thing, you may suddenly get either in your inbox, you'll get a bill for a service that was provided that you never actually asked for or received, or even for goods that were purchased. Maybe a call that one of these courier companies has got a package for a pickup, but you have to pay a certain fee, all these kind of things. If you didn't ask for it in the first place, it means somebody's suddenly gotten access to your information and is sending bills to you. I don't know how many of you still receive your bank statements or your credit card statements in the mail. If you do, again, please look for them. They usually come around the same time of the month. Please open them. please, please, please open your bank statements, and particularly your credit card statements as well. Open them and look and go through them and scan to see if there's anything that you don't have a receipt for or that you don't recognize. And also be on the outlook if suddenly in a month those statements are not showing up. And that's the same for your utility bills. If you're still receiving those in the mail, be looking, hey, I haven't been receiving my utility bill. And then again, you're going to go back to that provider and start to check for it. You may get telephone calls or emails from banks, and these may be legitimate, right? And this is part of the problem, right? Because it may be that your bank is phoning you because maybe a term deposit is up for renewal and all those kind of things. You're going to need to be really, really careful on these calls. And maybe what you want to do is say, thanks for alerting me about this, if it's a telephone call, and then say, hey, I'm going to get back to you. I'm tied up right now. I will get back to you and I will look into this, hang up and go and get their actual phone number and call them directly through the call center. If it's an email from the bank, right, or even from your credit card, and there's a message inside of there which says, your bank statement is available, click on this URL, please, 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 or whatever that message is, and there's something that says, click on the link below, please don't do it. Do not do it, because more than likely that is a scam, and they will have just changed one little letter in that URL, that website, where that N is now an M or that I is an L, and we just visually, we can't see it, or don't even know what to look for. But if organizations such as financial institutions are going to send you an email about your statements or anything, they're going to tell you your statement is available for download and you need to go through the proper process of logging in. Never click on those URLs. The same is for CRA. They will never ask you to click on a link. They're going to say if you've got a My account, my information, there's new information on your site. You need to go through your browser directly and access that account through your My account or through your online banking. A little bit tricky with the banks, like I said, because they will call you and you will get emails for them, but just be a little bit careful. Okay, so what happens if you have been a victim and you've identified you've been a victim? And like I say, it's not if, it's when. I want you to create a log. I want you to write everything down. And then if you suspect that your personal information is being used without your authorization, this is what the RCMP says. Create that log and then immediately start contacting your credit agencies. The two big credit agencies that we've got Equifax and we've got TransUnion. I think there's documents that are being distributed which will have these numbers available to you, but you can actually contact them immediately, let them know that you suspect that something's happened. You also want to immediately call all of your creditors, all of your utility companies, your cell phone companies, your phone companies, your credit card companies, your bank, right? And let other people know that your information, that you've been compromised and that your personal identity may be at risk. It may be that everything's going to be okay, but again, it's better to be safe than sorry. And do call the police. We're so hesitant in calling the police, and honestly, the police may not directly be able to help you, but by giving the police information, you're giving them data, you're giving them more information about what the bad guys are up to. You're helping inform them, create their knowledge base, and it's enabling them to be in a better position to help other individuals when they themselves have their identity stolen or when they are victims of fraud. So do contact them. It's not a wrong thing to do. It's a good thing and it's the right thing to do. A couple of other places which are really good places to go to. Senior Busters is one of them. These are a group of volunteers which have a really diverse background and many different skill sets, and they're out there to try to help and to reduce the number of seniors that are actually victimized by fraud. But what's really good about this particular group is that they're there to also provide that emotional support for you, that moral support. They also provide education. They'll assist you if you're not certain about how to contact some of the agencies that you need to go after. And they're going to actually help victims if you are victimized. especially against some of those horrible scams where you're really victimized, like the grandparent scams or the romance scams. They're going to help you regain your personal dignity because it's very invasive and it doesn't feel good. And it's really important to talk to other people that can give you the right guidance. New Horizons is another program that is out there to help you get knowledge, and particularly in the area of elder abuse. And then our government's got tons of resources out there as well. So just going to touch on a few of the types of frauds that are out there. You probably have heard of all of these already. The Nigerian letter scam, that's been out there forever. If you've read the book 419, that's probably a great book to read. But what they do is you get a distraught individual, and they're asking you to send them a small amount of money to help unlock a much bigger amount of money. And if you actually send them that small amount of money so that they can do this, then they're going to send you a sizable chunk. Don't fall for that. It's still out there. They're now coming not so much in mail, but they're coming in emails. Just be aware of that. The same thing with the inheritance scam. So it's a little bit like the Nigerian letter scam, but what you're doing is you're getting this long lost relative that has passed away, and somebody's contacting you, and they're saying they're here. You're the last next of kin, and you've inherited this amount. But in order for us to be able to send this inheritance to you, you need to send us now this fee and give us, or they need to give us your banking information, whatever they're asking for you. Not true. You're never going to have to give any of that information. Inheritances, you will never have to pay a fee for that. And you will not likely have to give them your personal information, because they can send you a certified check if indeed you be getting this type of inheritance. Also, advance fee loans. If you're, there's so many emails and stuff out there online in the internet, which is saying, hey, you know what, you can get this loan for really, really cheap. You just have to pay this small fee, and then we're going to forward you this money. And you may be a little bit short of strap. Christmas Christmas is around the corner. You want to buy your family things. It's really tough out there now. And you say, oh, I can take out this little loan, and there's a fee attached to it. Anytime you apply for a legitimate loan, there is no fee. You should never have to pay a fee up in front. So stay away. It's not a legitimate type of a loan. Don't go that way. And the other one that is out there is particular for people who are selling in places such as Marketplace. What happens is, or online type of sales through the Facebook and those kind of things. You might be selling a product, and then the individual says, okay, yeah, I want that product. And they show up at your place and they bring a check, and that check happens to be at a much higher amount than what you've actually sold a product for. And they go, oh, I'm so sorry. I wrote out the check for higher than I was supposed to. Why don't you just give me the difference, and I'll give you this check, and we'll be even. And so what people have done is then they've either given the cash for that difference of what that check was made up to, or they sent them an e-transfer. They gave them that good, and then they took this other check, which was for a much higher amount. And by the time they go to the bank and cash this check, their money's gone. That good that they were selling is gone, and they've got a check that's now going to bounce and be NSF. So again, something just to be aware of. It's still happening out there. And one of the most horrible things that I think that happens is how the bad guys, how the criminals, how the fraudsters, they really prey on our humanity, that sense of compassion that we have, that generosity. And at the same time, that's somewhat linked to that sense of greed, because if there's some kind of return for you, you may fall for that as well, and our sense of gullibility. So what I'm talking about here is when we have these horrible natural disasters that happen, things such as earthquake, things such as the tsunamis, things such as the war in the Ukraine and in Israel and wherever else. We had the atmospheric river a couple of years ago, right around this time of the year, and all the flooding that happened out in the valley. And then suddenly you get all these not-for-profit organizations collecting money. But it's not just the not-for-profit organizations that are collecting money to support these disasters and the victims of these disasters that have happened. the bad guys are right on top of this, and they're creating these fraudulent sites and all this sort of stuff. And it's very easy for you. You'll get a call even saying, hey, donate to this, and you want to help because you're caring. We're caring individuals. We care about our fellow human beings. And you can very easily then fall prey to that where you're not giving to a legitimate source. So I ask you to please be really, really careful. You want to support them. But the bad guys, organized crime, they love it when a natural disaster happens because they're able to, again, appeal to that and get funding from so many people and on a repetitive pattern because they'll come after you repeatedly and you don't even know. In fact, you may receive a charitable donation receipt that looks legitimate but is not. So again, I'd be really, really cautious to you. Please support these causes, but always go to the direct source whenever you can. Money mules, I'll just briefly talk about that. It's a really, really simple mechanism. What happens is the criminals are going to get in, they're going to infect your computer. And then once they're inside of your computer, they're going to access your passwords, particularly if you saved them, and they're going to be transferring money to different accounts. The money mule is then, their role is to take this money and to ship it overseas because who's ever inside and stealing your information, they're usually just transferring that money to another bank account. And often it's a bank account with your same bank even. So it's a really easy transfer that's taken place. And then it's these mules that are then shipping it off to these offshore places and that money is then gone. There's been a lot of social insurance scams, really, really big one. Again, keep that really personal. Do not carry your social insurance card around with you. There was a big fraud in the United States a few years back where the bad guys got access to the social insurance numbers and social security numbers in the States. And almost a million times were they be able to sit there and use these social insurance numbers to get tax refunds that were never sent to the individuals, but to remote mailboxes. And it was done very quickly, very fast. And it was very, very cleverly done. And, the government was out of all this money just by these stolen social insurance numbers. Briefly, medical identity theft. This happens as well, where maybe they've stolen your ID, your medical information, and then they're using it to purchase medical treatments or different types of products. But I also want to make you aware of a different type of medical fraud that happens is that when you maybe got a healthcare plan of some sort, and then there's a family member that's experienced some maybe financial challenge and has got some health issues as well, and they're asking you to maybe run some of these medical costs through your healthcare plan. And what they're doing is they're making you an accomplice of this. And again, their story might be legitimate, but be really careful. Don't be pressured into doing that. Your medical identity, your medical cards, and your healthcare plans, they're only intended to be used for yours, not for anybody else. So don't let any family member pressure you into using that to buy any of their kind of medication or needs. Here's an offline type of a fraud that happens out there, skimmers. This was big back in the 2010 to the 2015 period. Millions and millions of dollars were stolen basically through the use of skimmers. So this is basically when you've got your credit card or you've got your debit card and they slide it into one of these machines, particularly before the chip came into play. And then what they were doing, they were copying all of that information and then they were creating new plastic with your personal credit card information and they were going out and they were making all kinds of purchases using your card, but they didn't even have your plastic, but they created these fake cards. Something to be aware of. Don't give your plastic credit cards or debit cards to anybody. You're the only one that should be touching it. You're the only one that should be sliding it or tapping it or entering your PIN number. Okay, I'm almost at the end and I think we're still okay for time. We're started a little bit late. 3 things about being prepared. This goes for your digital information as well as your financial data and your health information. Do credit checks. Remember what I said? Call your credit companies, do regular credit checks. You're able to do that at least once every 12-month period for free to ask for a credit report on your computer. If you know what, check to see if there's been failed login attempts or if there's been a password reset that's been sent to you. Because if you haven't even been on that site or trying to log in for a considerable period of time, there should not be a failed login. So again, that's a little bit of a red flag for you. Be vigilant. Remember to look at all of your bank statements and all of that mail that comes through. Open them. Be looking for missing documents, and like I said, do those credit checks. 3 types of other controls that you want to be aware of that are the foundation of our data protection principles. Have a backup plan. If you don't have that backup plan, I want you to, after this Zoom meeting today or maybe tomorrow, sit there and actually pretend, do a tabletop exercise and pretend that your identity is being stolen. And then, think, okay, what are all those things that could possibly have been stolen? Things such as your credit card information, those numbers, the numbers are there on the back, right? The expiry dates, that special 3-digit code, your passport information, your driver's license, your social insurance number. Take all that information that you're then going to potentially have to recreate, right? And put it then into a safe place, maybe your safety security box, maybe keep it online, but just be really, really careful. Go through, collect it all, pretend that you've been hacked, identity's been stolen, and then create that backup plan. Because it's really, really hard when you have actually been compromised and when your data is being stolen to try to get all that information, because maybe at this point you don't even have access to it anymore. And finally, I'm going to say one of the things to consider is we've got our online banking. Probably a lot of you are online banking. It's so easy to sit there and interconnect all of our accounts, our credit cards, our investment accounts, our bank accounts. Maybe you've got multiple bank accounts, because it makes it easier to log in. If they're not connected, then we have to individually log into all of these different products, and we have to enter unique passwords. But I'm going to encourage you, one of the ways that you can protect yourself is to deconverge all of these. Try to avoid interconnecting all of these. And that applies not just to your computers, it also applies to your phones as well. Please also don't, on your phones or on your computer, when you get that option, keep password, remember password, please do not click yes on that. Because if your computer has been hacked and the bad guys are in there, if you've had it remember your password, they're able to get into all of your accounts. So don't, make sure that you go through all, I know it's a pain, but go in there and actually type in your username and your unique password for all of those different sites. The other thing you want to do is on your computers and your smartphones is sit there and actually to sanitize them, because they will remember stuff. They will remember some of our personal information to different sites that you go or different things that you sign up for. So maybe occasionally go through and get that all cleaned out and all that information purged. So all that personal information is no longer in your computers or on your smartphones. And lastly, I know passwords are, they're brutal, right? And we keep having to change, and we need to add all kinds of characters. Really, really tough. But again, keep them in really, really safe places. And if you've got the option, consider using a passphrase. Passphrases are actually harder for the bad guys to find or to create or to hack into. And a passphrase basically is, I'll give you a really simple example, but don't use this example, is, for instance, if you have an account with the Royal Bank, a passphrase might be something like the Queen of England. Royal being royal family, and then, actually now it would be maybe even King of England, something like that. But it's something that will remind you of what that actual passphrase is. We have covered tons of information together. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to because I told some of my personal stories, and I do apologize for that. Tons of sources out there that you can access, and I know we're going to share that information. But I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and maybe we've got an opportunity for some questions, if anybody's got any questions. I don't know if there's anything in the chat.
There weren't any questions in the chat that I saw, but there were lots of people who have been scammed and the romance scam. So it's really valuable information.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to keep saying that it's not if, it's when. If you haven't been caught yet, the likelihood is that you will. And, hopefully you've got a little bit more information about now what to do, because it will happen, and not to be ashamed, not to be embarrassed. Please don't. It's just that the bad guys, they're smart. And unfortunately, they're always one step ahead. They're all, even though we've got lots of professionals, the RCMP and our police and all these agencies, staying on top of it and shutting them down, they're on to the next thing really, really quickly. So they're just going to be out there, and they're always going to prey on the vulnerable. And yeah, and it doesn't just happen to seniors. Fraud happens to anybody and every age.
I see that someone's asking about the screen with the all the details about the credit. So
Oh, I'm not sure I can return to that.
it's okay, because we're going to send this information. If you don't mind, Angela, sending it to us, we'll forward to everyone who participated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I thought there was something that was shared. But by all means, I will send that to you tomorrow then. There's a whole package of information and resources, and I'll send the PowerPoint as well.
Okay,
Um,
excellent. Yeah.
yeah,
And
plus I understand that it was recorded as well, so that you'd be able to access it through that way as well. But I will send just the printouts of the PowerPoint so that you can get those, and the list of the resources and so forth. Happy to do that. There's a hand that went up.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Recently, I got an email from a very large corporation that their system was hacked. They refused to pay the ransomware. And so now they said that the information that they had, personal information, has been stolen and available on the dark web or whatever. Is there any comments on how to deal with that?
Well, generally, if a large corporation is the victim of a data breach, and as a result you are, what they tend to do is, if there is even the slightest possibility of your identity having been stolen, they will provide for you so that you can have credit monitoring through the Equifax and through the TransUnion. So you should be asking them to provide that service for you. And then they're going to be actively, the credit agencies are going to be actively monitoring your accounts to see if there's any unusual activity. I mean, the likelihood is probably small that they're going to get your personal, that they're going to use that. But because there is that risk, I would definitely ask them to be providing you with that credit monitoring. And if they won't, you might want to go and contact the credit agencies yourself. And again, tell them what happened and ask them whether or not they'll put that. I think you might have to pay a fee, but it depends on that situation. But I would definitely be calling them.
Yeah, they send a link to do that, to go to someone to monitor, a company to monitor. I did check on the website, and it is showing that the company was hacked, but it goes back 12 years. It was hacked in 2012, and then it's been rehacked again recently, and they're saying that the information from previously is what they got from a long time ago. And I don't have any credit cards or anything left that were actually available at that point in time. They only said it could be compromised as your driver's license, because I needed that for ID.
And I think and again, this is why it's starting to make us be paranoid, because we do get these notifications, and we're getting them from financial institutions, investment institutions, lots of big organizations, right? So the problem is they've got a responsibility to let anybody that may have potentially been where their identity has been stolen, they need to now notify them, which is the right thing to do, right? So again, be vigilant, be looking at all those things that I said. Look at your credit card statements, be looking at all these things. Be checking your bank statements, be checking your credit reports, because if anybody's using any of this information, and they do have access to that, you're going to start to see some unusual activity. That's probably the best thing that you can do if they're not going to put that credit monitoring on your account.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
we have some questions in the chat. So one is from Gordon. He asks, did you mean to clear cookies when you say sanitize? And there's another question about how can we sanitize the information in our tools?
Yeah, clearing cookies is one of them because they remember all those things about you, right? And even like even when you go and they want to I'm just trying to think of an example here because whenever I log into something, my information will pop up. I'll type the first letter of my name and that information will pop up. So you kind of want to not use it. You want to try to see if you can delete that. And I'm not techie savvy either. I actually don't even know how to actually do that. I would have to go and talk to my techie people as to how to really sanitize it. But you just kind of want to go through, clear out those cookies. That will actually clear out a lot of that information. But maybe if you've got somebody professional computer person that's looking at computer, ask them what else you can do to clear out all that historical information. Delete all these downloads and all that kind of stuff as well. Is there something else? Was there anything else?
Nothing else in the chat. A lot of people are saying it's very good information and thank you for the session.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, and I do apologize. I know I speak fast and because you've recorded it, maybe you can slow it down a little bit. I don't know. But there is a lot of content and I thank you all again for giving me this opportunity to to speak to this topic. I'm by no means an expert on fraud, but it's out there and it's going to impact. It impacts all of us, and we just got to do a little bit to protect ourselves. And please, you know what? You seem to be a group, and you seem to know each other. Maybe at some point take an opportunity to share some of your stories because we learn from the stories of how other people have been hacked, and it will that little bell will go off when you're in that situation because it will subtly dawn you, wait, this sounds the same thing like what somebody else experienced. And that goes back to don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed, actually share. Because that's how we're going to get ahead of the bad guys, by being more aware and more knowledgeable. So on that note, I guess we've got no other questions. I'm going to sign off and gosh, it's almost December, so I wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is that be careful because this is when the fraudsters are really going to be out there. They're going to be looking for donations. They're going to be looking for your money. You know, that Scrooge, he's there. So just do take care in that regard and all the best to you and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Very much
Angela.
appreciate your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you,
Thank you.
TB Vets.